Hello, welcome to week 2 of our Viterbo class, Understanding the Young Adolescent. Let's start by just a few of the questions. I will respond to a few of the questions that you have written to me on the online class. One was a little bit of concern about the workload. And what Viterbo expects is that if we were to have a 3-hour class, to at least have the reading, the discussion, and the work that would be equivalent to the 3-hour class. And then on top of that, the homework section, which is a 1.5 times the amount of class time. So that's the reason for, that's the expectation in order to be able to offer the credit. And that's why it may seem like the workload is a little much. At the same time, a reminder that I had told you from the first recording that this is all about you and your learning. And as long as you are making efforts and doing the work and learning, you don't really need to worry that much about the workload and the grade. I expect you to immerse yourself in understanding the young adolescent, and I think the rest comes. If you have specific questions on that, please let me know. Other than that, I think we're ready to move forward and talk about the traits of the young adolescent. And I have 2 resources that I want to share with you today as far as actually going through them step by step. And then finally, the second half of the class session, I have some actual teenagers that I've just asked a few questions. Tell me a little bit about what it's like to be a teenager. And so you'll only hear me for about a half hour. I think 2 15-minute segments is how I have it planned so that I can upload it to YouTube easier. And then there's the segment where we have a couple of 8th and 9th grade students answering some questions. So understanding the traits of a young adolescent. Be sure you watch the YouTube video of Judith Bannon talking. Nobody understands young adolescents quite like she does. She really has a good handle on it. You can tell she's worked with them for a long time. And she has a great YouTube video. But an even better video is Help, How to Enjoy Living with a Pre-Adolescent. If you have that on video, maybe ask your principal, ask your AEA. So worth watching. I've not known another research scholar, teacher, person who has a better handle on what the young adolescent is like. I do have the book, or the actual pamphlet, that I'm going to be going over today in class, but the actual video itself is good. One example is when she talks about how 6th graders come in and they know everything, and they rattle it off, and then they say, would you like us to recite it to you backwards and forwards and in a different language even, where then you get to 7th and 8th grade and they're like, huh? I don't think we ever learned that. No different than if you see them in class and or in the hallways, and 6th graders want to come up and hug you and tell you everything about their dog and their aunt and their uncle and everything that happened on the weekend, and the 8th graders just say, here she comes. So just the difference in the traits and how they act. She really has a good handle on that. Another example she gives is when she takes her 7th grader to the store to return a pair of jeans, and they drive up to the store, and he said, well, what am I going to say? And she says, well, you go in and you say, I'd like to return these jeans. Well, then what's the clerk going to say? Well, the clerk's going to say, do you have a receipt? Well, then what am I going to say? So, I mean, just that whole, they want to be old, they want to be adults, and at the same time, they're just so scared. It's the first time they've done this, and they want to act old, but just don't quite know how. So anyway, if you can get a hold of that video, I have a copy. I'd be happy to send it out, but I only have one copy. And if you can locate it, it's definitely worth a watch. But in the meantime, then, let's look a little bit at this pamphlet here. And once again, I have many copies of these. So if this is something that you really are interested in, I can send you these, or you can get them from the National Middle School Association. I'm just going to go through it and highlight some of the more important pieces, and feel free then in the discussion area to react and respond however you see fit. Page 1. Although they sometimes don't show it by words or actions, young adolescents are devoted to their families and very much affected by them. Family provides an opportunity to be oneself, to grow and change, and here's key, in a safe environment to show and receive love. So the reason the families get the brunt of all of their anger and hurt is because it's safe. They hold it together at school, but at home is where it's very safe to be. Yet at the same time, this is a really important time for peers, and they're looking for peer acceptance. They already know they have the acceptance from the families, but they're looking for acceptance of their peers. Talks about the importance of parents in middle level education. Students actually achieve more, like school more, and have better internal family relationships when families are involved in the school. So just the importance of being at school. All middle school kids go through a wide variety of change during their pre-adolescent years. Their bodies change, their attitudes, their values change, their relationships change, even their intellectual processes change during this time. So let's talk about a few ways that these intellectual processes do change. For one thing, because of their growing brains and hormones and all that, young adolescents tend to forget. They forget things and they don't know why, and that's frustrating to them. It's one of the earliest signs of approaching adolescence. Pre-adolescents' minds are so preoccupied with other issues that they can't remember simple things like maybe even their address or their telephone number. They're very irritable. Middle school students are often irritable, there's no doubt about it. Lots of energy, but along with the energy comes moods. Pre-adolescent hormones are changing, and these hormones bring on moods that are real, sometimes physically draining. But the key here, they're always unpredictable, that whole unpredictability. Young adolescents enjoy and revel in a power play. They want to find those people that they can draw into their power play, somebody who will argue with them. The number one thing in middle school, when I get a new teacher, is do not engage in the argument. If you see that struggle coming, just ignore it, calm down, say we'll talk about it later, but do not engage. Okay, we talked about friends a little bit earlier. Middle school often means turbulent times for friendships. They may be having a disaster, the end of the world at first period because their best friend hates them forever and will never be their friend again. And if you just say, okay, I'll talk to you third hour, usually they have it all patched up and they're best friends again, hugging and walking down the hall together. But in bigger cities, that's sometimes why you see gang activities. They're all looking for a place where they belong. The cliques at lunch, the lunch table groups, they want to belong. So in a middle school, the more ways you can find them to join clubs, whether it's a card club or a game club or a cooking club or a girls club, however you can make those clubs work and happen, they have to belong to something. A great reason why advisory is so important, which we'll be talking about later on in the class, but the number one purpose of advisory is that these kids feel like they belong to a group of people, and that is their group, and that group cares about them. So feeling like you fit is so important. And then also having that advocate, that if you don't feel like you fit or you do have a problem, you know that you can go to your advisor and they will help advocate for you. Another thing about middle school, there's a lot of social cruelty. And I tell you, I've seen that more in the last 5 years than ever before. A big reason just due to the social media, the Facebook, the Twitter, those kind of things. There's so much social cruelty. And I got to tell you, especially in girls, because boys will maybe fight it out. But girls have that whole mental thing going on of isolation and the looks and all that are hard to pinpoint and hard to say. You really can't look at her wrong, but we know it's a big issue in the schools. It talks in here about the culture, our own culture of just that it's cool to put people down. And I talk a lot with our students about bringing them up. If they're your friend, it's not okay to be, saying we're just messing around. We always rip each other apart, and trying to get them from the negative more to the positive of enjoying being with each other and bringing them up and saying, yes, you can do this. Talk about chores. Few things irritate a parent of a middle school more than trying to get him or her to work. Excuses, procrastination, false starts, flat-out refusal. As I read this, I think right away of homework. I don't think there is a middle school out there that doesn't struggle with what do we do with these kids and getting them to do their homework. Because if you really look at the grades in your school right now, I would say that any of your Fs are because the students simply didn't do it, not because they don't get it. So how do we get these kids to stay organized, to remember to do their homework, and then just to not be procrastinating and to be able to do their homework? Another characteristic is worries. Middle school kids worry. They worry about everything. They worry about their dog and their parents and their things going on in their life. Just they lay awake and they worry, and they don't know why. They even worry about why they're worrying. They worry about what's wrong with them. Sleep is a big issue, so they um, they have real hard time getting to sleep at night and then can't get up in the morning, and they worry about why is that, and that's all part of the middle school. In fact, a lot of middle schools talk about should we be starting later because middle school natural sleep patterns have them going to bed later and waking up later. But they worry, what's wrong with me? That is the constant mantra in their head. What is wrong with me? Who's going to see the zit, or who's going to hear my lisp, or who's going to make fun of my clothes? What's wrong with me? Is the talk that's continually going through their head. And it ends with joy. Pre-adolescent behavior often drives us parents crazy, but why? We manage through the terrible twos, the fearsome fours, all those other stages. Why should pre-adolescence be such a pain? Because we're losing our child. Middle school marks the beginning of the long process that transforms cuddling, enthusiastic child into a compassionate, well-rounded, energetic adult. And so that just kind of gives a whole summary of the book, and it's a great resource for parents. If your school doesn't have it, it's a great thing to have out during conference time. So it's one that I would recommend highly. I'm going to stop this part one, and we're going to do a little bit more in part two, talking about more characteristics of the young adolescent. So I will continue with part two and upload this one to YouTube. See ya.